Ever since the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, the world is facing a polycrisis, or in simpler terms, a perfect storm of pandemic and other health crises, geopolitical competitions and wars in Europe and in the Middle East, financial volatilities that hurt both developed and developing countries, which include high inflation, high interest rate, and a debt crisis, as well as a permanent and worsening climate crisis. With this as a background, now the world are facing the following paradigm shift and new realities. First, the pursuit of cheap outsourcing in the name of efficiency is giving way to the concern for supply chain resilience and diversification. Gone are the days when many thought the world was constituted by a single global supply chain. Increasingly, supply chains will be divided along geopolitical lines or formed according to regional proximity to avoid risks associated with too long a supply chain such as those experienced during the COVID-19 pandemic or the Red Sea crisis. Second, no one now believes the idea that economics and politics or security do not mix. Economics will intertwine with politics and security even more from now. Nation states and national elections or politics have huge consequences on the economy, as we learned in 2024, especially the elections of the second Trump administration. Each nation has domestic politics to deal with, as we all realize, not only in the developing world and now in the developed world. And to prevent popular revolt or right-wing populism to take root, all governments have to ensure that the economy delivers decent social economic outcomes for their people. Third, there's a limit to export-led industrialization. In the last 30 years, last 70 years actually, in the last 70 years, from Japan to the Four Dragons or Four Tigers, to the Tiger Cups, to China, Asia in general grew rich by exporting to the United States and to a lesser extent, Europe. On the one hand, this market, Europe and the United States, are seeing the shrinking of their middle classes as well as the shrinking population. On the other hand, Asian industrialization has generated a massive productive overcapacity or capacity, huge capacity. The two do not add up. Something will break somewhere. Asian economies cannot forever think of the United States as the export destination of the first and the last resort. We will have to create more consumer markets, especially in ASEAN. These three massive trends or massive changes bring home a simple message. Business as usual won't cut it. ASEAN needs to be bold to face the challenges while taking advantage of the opportunity presented. As we envisage ASEAN in 2045, as this year we'll be unveiling the ASEAN 2045 vision, there are three key elements which are important. First, ASEAN as a regional supply chain. If we leave it to the major powers, the supply chain will probably eventually bifurcate as the United States and China extricate themselves from each other. It is not in the interest of the rest of the world to see supply chain bifurcates. And therefore, ASEAN, together with European Union, Global South and the rest, need to do the heavy lifting to ensure that the middle ground or the common ground of trade is big enough to resist bifurcation. And this is also the time that ASEAN member states should see each other not as competitors, but complementing each other to form a resilient regional supply chain. It is in this context that the Johor-Singapore Special Economic Zone, which was signed or agreed yesterday, unveiled yesterday, has the potential of creating an exciting future and as a role model. More ASEAN-wide joint investment projects or sub-regional cooperation will help to make the ASEAN supply chain stronger. The sum is much bigger than the parts. Second, ASEAN as a middle power. When ASEAN was formed in 1967, it was during a volatile world in transition, just like today. ASEAN's non-aligned stance wasn't born out of a vacuum. ASEAN was established precisely because the founders thought that ASEAN should not be aligned to each side during the Cold War, and that we had to get together to be a force to be reckoned with. The 2020s is exactly such a moment that we in ASEAN need to hang together so not to be hung separately. We need to work with each other very closely, and we need to ensure that each ASEAN member state is economically secure and well-to-do enough so to form a much stronger regional solidarity. Third, ASEAN as a prosperous middle-class society does an important market. Over the last 2 decades, ASEAN should emerge as a middle-class society. Over the next 2 decades, ASEAN should emerge as a middle-class society and thus becoming a sizable consumer market and not just production sites in the old formulation of export-led industrialization. To do so, we must ensure that ASEAN member states do not enter into a race to the bottom in terms of wages, tax cut or tax holidays, and environmental standards. Instead, ASEAN must uphold environmental standards and also do more together. ASEAN is used to the old export-led industrialization model in which we help multinationals to suppress wages to make us a cheap destination to produce. ASEAN is also used to giving tax cuts or tax holidays to multinationals. As countries begin to adopt the global minimum tax, there's an urgent need for ASEAN to work together, for ASEAN member states to come together to work out an agreement not to circumvent the GMT. The multinationals are knocking each country's treasuries to ask for cash grants to circumvent the GMT. We will have to stand together to tell the multinationals that we need to collect taxes, and we need to collect these taxes for the greater goods of our people, and for ASEAN to emerge as a middle-class society, which in turn will be a huge market for all, including for the multinationals. Also, we need to ensure that when we develop our economy, we are protecting the climate and the environment together, and there should be no race to the bottom among us. As you can see, I have high hopes on ASEAN coming together as a supply chain, as a middle power, as a middle-class society. I hope you will deliberate more over the next few days, especially on the theme of Malaysia's ASEAN chairmanship, inclusivity and sustainability, which aims for the growth and sustainable development to ensure no one is left behind. Prime Minister Dr. Sri Anwar has expressed his hope for Malaysia that to achieve growth, inclusivity and sustainability at the same time, just like in the Economic Madani framework, Prime Minister Anwar articulated the needs to raise the bottom, to raise the floor and to raise the ceiling at once. Of course, a lot has to be done to achieve this. I believe ASEAN member states share this vision.